of our lives. As an artist collaboration, we've given shape and depth to some of the most complicated topics of our time, making them easily accessible for those who seek to understand. We've given voice and space to the stories that often go ignored. Please take a moment to consider being a patron, make a donation, or join Rockfin. Thank you. Oh, hello. Hi. Welcome to Pullquote. It's just me today. Julie is unavailable, so I'm taking the reins and hosting the show by myself. So I hope you're all doing well today. Today we have a special guest. Like always, we have a very special guest, but we have a repeat guest, a friend of ours who we've known for a little while, and her name is Helen Buyniski. She's an investigative journalist, commentator, and photographer based in New York. She writes for RT and has also appeared on PressTV, al-Mayadeen, Progressive Radio Network, WBAI in New York, Active Post, LBC, and other outlets around the world from Australia to Serbia. Her work can be found at helenofdestroy.com. She has a bachelor's degree from New School University, has studied Columbia University and New York University, and is also a violinist and a theremin player, which is really very cool. And I'm going to welcome Helen. Hi, Helen. How you doing?
Good
Helen
to be here.
of Destroy. I love that. How you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. It's kind of a snowy Saturday morning while we're talking today.
No snow here, but
Yeah. Anyway, well, glad to have you on the show, and sorry Julie couldn't join us, but she's going to be chatting with us. So in case she has any thoughts on what we're talking about, she'll be talking to us. So we'll hear from her via chat. So what's been going on? It's been about I don't know, maybe 9 months since we saw you last.
well, I mean, New York is still on its way to becoming a massive police state. It's interesting to watch how other states are rolling back their mandates and basically letting up on the insanity. But for New York, it's full speed ahead. The Wicked Witch of Albany is trying to out-fascist Cuomo, which is I mean, if you're trying to out-fascist Cuomo, it's a lose-lose proposition either way. But it's unfortunate because this city is my home. I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else, and I hate to see it go to shit.
Yeah, that's how I felt about San Francisco, and I got out before it started going to shit. It was my home. I lived there for like 33 years. So basically grew up there, as an adult anyway.
Yeah.
Young adult to mature person. And it's amazing to see this going on in all the cities. But, now I live in a city that was ruined, a few decades ago through NAFTA. And, everywhere you go, there's just blight and hard times. On a city that was once prosperous for a working class. And now it's, you see these old brick apartment buildings that were just gorgeous. The brickwork is stunning. And yet they're just like completely dilapidated through, just lack of care and lack of money to fix them and just everything. And you see that everywhere in the city. And I think what they've been doing to the Midwest, they're now doing to other cities that, hold, a variety of population and just making everybody poor. I guess that's equity.
Yeah, they're holding the cities hostage and forcing them to just decay. I mean, with everything that's going on now, especially with our new district attorney, who's made it his mission to ensure that nobody goes to jail for anything short of murder, which is like, I mean, I'm not one of these lock him up and throw away the key kind of people, but it's right. Like, I mean, you see there are all these videos that people post of just like people walking into these stores and filling up their bags with whatever they want and just leaving. And it's like,
Yeah, you see that in the California videos too, from San Francisco especially. They'll walk into a Walgreens or something, and they're allowed to take up to like just under $1,000.
Yeah,
worth of stuff, and walk out, and the security guards are not allowed to interfere.
It really defeats the purpose of having a security guard, you would think, but
right. Like, why do they even bother, right? Oh, I guess to make sure people have a mask on, maybe.
That's true. You can't have people just wantonly breathing oxygen all over the place. That's a terrible crime.
Right. I know. Well, you mouth breathers out there. So Julie wanted to find out what your take is on the new mayor of New York.
Oh, he's a joke. I mean, I was saying from day one, I call him de Blasio. It's de Blasio in a black man's skin, basically. Right. And so he's trying to be everything to all people, and it's embarrassing. It's as embarrassing as de Blasio was, except that this time we get like the diversity angle, and right. he's trying to. Oh well, I used to be a cop, so like I'm on the side of the cops, and I'm on the side of the liberals, and I'm on the side of it's like, dude, you're an embarrassment. Just get up.
Well, it's like identity politics on steroids, and then this whole idea of like, oh, I can relate to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is really offensive.
Yeah, exactly. It is this idea that he's trying to be like a man of the people, and it's like he doesn't even live in New York City, which is. I mean, that kept coming up during the election, but nobody really seemed to want to take it too far. It's like, okay, so he made a big deal of wanting to shovel his sidewalk in front of his house, but it's not his house. He lives in Fort Lee, New Jersey. So, like,
well, how is that? How does that even work now? I mean, isn't there aren't there regulations and laws in place?
Yeah, there are, but this is New York, so it's like we invented political corruption. Everybody else is just trying to copycat us.
Well, I think San Francisco is doing a really good job of it.
Oh yeah, they're doing a great job.
I mean, they put identity politics on steroids, and then went even further, right? It's like the mayor there, London Breed, she allegedly was born in the neighborhood that I was living in the district that I was living in, and she was the district supervisor at some point, and then she became mayor because the last mayor was murdered or whatever. I think he was murdered. He had a heart attack, but we saw him a couple days before he died, and he looked gray and ashen, like somebody was poisoning him or something.
Yikes.
Anyway, so she took over as mayor and then was elected in, allegedly elected in, and the things that she's doing to that city are just horrific, and she's playing the identity politics to the hilt, and it's just amazing to see the policies that are coming out of that city. I think you can see spreading out throughout the entire country. And I imagine New York is the same way. It's like this thing that's coming from both sides,
Yeah, that this unelected governor who just basically happened to be standing in the right place at the right time when they took Cuomo out. So this woman who has no qualifications to be anything. I mean, she's just, like I said, at the same time that other cities are rolling back their mandates and doing away with this vaccine psychosis, she's doubling down and trying to get more kids to. I don't know if you've, this actually just recently came out like last week, but the CDC has actually altered its, the childhood development milestones to basically compensate for the fact that the masks are causing children to be developmentally disabled for, in a huge way. Because I mean, if you're a baby and you're looking up at your parent, and the parent has a mask on and you don't know what the parent is saying because you can't read lips, you can't read expressions. I mean, we're dealing with this entire generation is going to be completely destroyed, and there's nothing that can be done about it at this point.
Well, and that plays into the whole idea of pushing people into services that are going to be required that they can make money from the third sector, and the government, and the unelected committees. I mean, we see what we've been saying for a while is, what you see that has been done to the poor is going to be done to the rest of us, and putting the rest of us into these tracts and these programs and things that normally you wouldn't really need, but because they're hurting the children and making them into little zombie automaton creatures who can't like tie their shoes or spell their name or whatever the case may be. I'm sounding a little reactionary here, but
no,
I think
you're correct. I mean, this is the problem is immense, and there's nothing. The government does not seem to think that it's a problem at all.
Right, exactly. But see, that's why the reason they don't is because they know they're going to make money from these children, right? Because they're going to keep them in those services, because it's you make money from keeping people poor or unstable or unable to take care of themselves. The cat, what is your cat's name? He's beautiful.
Imelda.
She's beautiful.
Yeah,
she looks a lot. Yeah, I know. She's amazing. There's an alley cat in back of our house he has a home, but he comes around and he looks a lot like her. He's just this grand creature who just knows he's the king of this block, and he just sits wherever he wants. But this bright shock of orange against the snow is pretty amazing to see.
Yeah, she came from a feral cat colony in Williamsburg, and she threw her lot in with the humans while the other cats just hung out in the parking lot, and so she ended up in a much better place than they did, I think.
Yeah, well, that's same with our little feral cat. We have a little runt of the litter who lives with us now, and she was like, you know what? I'm little, and my hair is my fur is short. Can you let me in for the winter? I'd love to stay with you.
Yeah, Imelda picked me. Like I would be crouching down to get something out of the bodega, the freezer or whatever, and she would jump up on my knees, and then she would crawl up and sit on my shoulder. When she was smaller, obviously, she tried to do that. Now she'd probably break my shoulder, but yeah, she definitely picked me.
That's cool. Yeah, cats do that. They pick their humans. Well, so kind of getting back to the whole idea of the children being affected and on all this, we're seeing more and more of the mask mandates being taken away by the governors, but this is a very disingenuous move because they're still allowing the school districts to make the decision to.
Yes, and there's no indication that it won't be reinstated at any given time. I mean, that's why people talking about Florida is so great right now, but it's actually if at the drop of a hat, DeSantis could just flip switch and then the mandates come back in full force. So it's
sure, yeah, and not only that, but the mayors pretty much are starting to have more power than the governors. I think. That's certainly the case in Illinois, and probably maybe the case in California, although, whatever. But, and given your new mayor who was allegedly, elected as opposed to your governor who was not, who was appointed, I have a feeling that's the case going on there as well, with this sort of like regionalization that we've talked about before. But, they're kicking it down the road to whatever metaphor I'm using, to the school districts or the cities or the corporations, right?
Largely the corporations. I mean, that's especially now that all the small businesses have been basically bullied into closing because there's just, I mean, you can't just not pay rent for a year and expect that your landlord is going to see eye to eye with you on this problem. But it's really a disaster because the New York used to be, beloved for all these little neighborhood spots, and there's just nothing anymore. And of course, people demanding everybody show their papers when they walk in is not helping either. That's
no,
kind of a deal killer.
It really is, and I think that that's what's going on in Chicago right now. The governor is trying to get rid of that, but not for the kids. But the mayor, of course, is pushing back, and so there's a real fight going on in Illinois. Here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania got rid of that stuff a while ago, but Philly went, full on fascist, but Pittsburgh, I think the mayor here, similar to your mayor, kind of, it didn't feel like he was coming in with a lot of political capital and in the first place, but enough to like go, you know what, Democratic Party, I know you rule me, but my city, if I do this, is going to be even worse off than it was before. And there's no fucking way that I'm going to let that happen, because I'll be strung up, by my heels. I think that, there's little places in Pittsburgh that are full on fasci, and they're the most bougie neighborhoods that there actually are bougie neighborhoods in Pittsburgh. But other places, it's like, there's no masks, there's no mask mandates, there's no vaccine mandate, or show your papers kind of attitude. It's really refreshing.
I went home to visit my parents in their new place up in Maine, and it's completely the opposite of like New York. They're sane up there. There's no pod people, and down here there's pod people everywhere. And you wonder, because it's been 2 years now, and people are still walking around outdoors with their masks on. And what exactly are they accomplishing by that? I ask these questions on social media, and I get attacked by these people. Oh, there's a pandemic on. That didn't answer my question. I'm asking, why are you wearing a mask outside? Right. Nobody can give me a straight answer to that question.
Right. I know. Isn't that weird? Like, even the New York Times, even the fucking New York Times is like, well, you don't need to wear a mask outside, hinting that you do need to wear one inside. But, they always like give and take with that shit. But it drives me crazy seeing people by themselves in their cars with a mask on. Yeah,
that's the ultimate COVID psychosis. It's really embarrassing. And people try to defend it. They're like, oh, well, because they don't want to take it off and put it on when they go into another place and this and that. And you're not actually addressing the question, which is, why are you wearing a mask outside by yourself? Nobody has the answer to that. So.
Just making excuses for your own enslavement.
Yeah, this paranoia of saying that it's like putting a clove of garlic outside your window so the vampires don't come in, and say, hey, I didn't get eaten by any vampires, so this must be working. So
it must be working. That crucifix around my neck is also going to keep them away too. So yep. I know people wear them for other reasons. I won't get into that. But well, let's go back to like the passport thing, and how prominent is that in New York? Is it like everywhere?
Well, you can't sit down for a dinner or anything if you don't have that. And they've started putting these certificates in the windows too, which I only recently saw. I hadn't seen those before until this month. They've now got these certificates, which I guess is a combination of all employees have been vaccinated here, plus you have to be vaccinated if you're going to be eating here. I mean, you could still go in and get a takeout or whatever, but you can't actually sit down and eat.
Wow. So do they let you come in to get the takeout?
That's the interesting part. I mean,
back door.
You come in to get the takeout, but they pretend that there's like some sort of invisible force field that like they usually have like a table or something to blocking people from getting in, and then that table is like the invisible force field that protects all of the good little farm animals from being assaulted by the cruelty of the evil anti-vaxxers. So my friend, who's very much on the right side of this, he's oh crap! It just fell out of my head. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I had an entertaining comment to make. Oh yeah. No, he did a video that's like pedophiles against anti-vaxxers. It's like, because this is obviously they found a new group to beat up on that's even worse than the pedophiles. Oh, so anti-vaxxers, they're evil. We must kill them all. And of course, a lot of people don't remember because nobody has memory that lasts more than 2 hours in any given direction. But Washington Post back in 2019 was like, oh yes, anti-vaxxers are evil and must be destroyed. And okay, so you were laying the groundwork for this little fun time
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
But
It's nice to see the words being thrown out there. Julie said she's texting us. She says the certificates sound like a Michelin
well,
rating.
they do basically, because Yelp now, like if you go onto these sites, these pages on Yelp, they like have a list of all of the hoops that they jump through. So it's like, yes, these tables are sanitized regularly, all staff wear masks, and this and this and this. And it's, I mean, yeah, it's how enslaved are you, basically?
Wow. She also was asking, are people fleeing New York? Are there
Oh yeah,
lots of empty
people have been
buildings?
fleeing New York for the last 2 years. You can't get a U-Haul. I mean, I don't live in my old neighborhood anymore, but you would be able to tell because there was this gas station that had all the U-Hauls there, and there were never any U-Hauls there around the time
Wow.
that I moved out to where I live now. But yeah, no, people are fleeing New York in droves. It's interesting because they, like, obviously the Bloombergs and the other outlets that are responsible for propping up the decaying narrative. They're talking like people are coming back into New York and all the prices are going up, and oh yeah, real estate is great, but I don't really see this. I mean, yes, the prices are going up, but I don't see people like jumping at the chance to live in police state New York. I mean, there are places upstate that are nice, or even if you go out to Long Island, you don't have to deal with all of this mandate crap. But it's like New York City itself. I don't really understand why anyone would move here at this point.
Wow.
I mean, I'm surprised they haven't. I'm surprised they haven't started burning down the Midtown office buildings for the insurance money. I was expecting that to happen last year, and it didn't.
Really?
It didn't happen. So,
Wow.
but I'm sure it's on its way. I just because there's nobody is coming. Actually, Eric Adams, like the other day, said something about how, oh yes, companies, we need to get your workers back into the office, as if that's going to really tempt anyone. If they've been working from home for the last 2 years, I'm sorry, you're not going to drag them back into the office kicking and screaming.
No, there are, I've been talking to a few people here and there, and there are people who are like going back into their office, but their companies are only letting like a few people in each day. Like, so it's not full staff. So like, and they've coordinated it so that they go in, every other person for that floor, that's part of the floor. And it's like, they're treating it like, oh, see, we're getting back together. We're working the way we used to. And they're trying to use that. Yeah, exactly. And they're trying to use that as a way of enticing people in and going, oh, it's good to be back downtown again. And we're at whatever city they're in, and it's, it's really amazing how they spin this shit.
Yeah, no, and they were trying to, for a while at least. The World Economic Forum came out with a thing in like early 2021, I think, about how we should actually repurpose all of this disused office space as pod apartments. And then Cuomo, like 2 weeks later, is like, we should repurpose all of this disused office space as pod apartments. And I'm not seeing the pod apartments coming to be, but there actually was in Providence, Rhode Island, a couple of years before the pandemic, they were talking about how great it was that they had converted the shopping mall into pod apartments, basically. And so this has been underway for a little while. And
it has. And we've been seeing downtown Pittsburgh being remodeled, or these buildings getting stripped out, and if they're not setting up for pod apartments now, it feels like they're setting up the infrastructure inside, the pipe, the plumbing and the HVAC systems and all that, so that they can easily be converted to that kind of building in the future. Julie wanted to find out
the monitors too, monitoring every drop of water, every ampere of electricity. Just the constant monitoring is what they're trying to get going.
Wow. Yeah. Well, they're doing that in California too. I mean, they put in a law a couple of years. It just finally went into effect. But about right before Julie and I left San Francisco, a law went into effect, or was approved, that they were going to only allow people, like, I don't know, something like 65 gallons of water per day.
Oh wow.
And then if you went over that, you'd be fined. And it's going to go down, like in a few years, it's going to go down to 60.
Oh, I'm
but
sure
at the same time,
really popular.
It will be, I'm sure, because at the same time, they have the laws surrounding like water usage for the agriculture is just all old and fucked up, and they leave it that way on purpose, and they're actually hurting the farmers in the valley there, not giving them enough water to grow their crops, which feeds like, I don't know, something like 2/3 of the country. I forget what the statistic was. We were talking to a guy a few weeks ago, Trent Luce, who was talking about agriculture, and he has all the statistics. But it's pretty remarkable how they're killing us on all sides.
Yeah,
and
and making
pretty
it
much.
and framing it as this like saving the environment. I mean, De Blasio back in 2014 like put through a law that like all these new buildings have to have all these monitoring systems and have to be this certification of green. And of course, all these certificates are just a scam because all these companies come out of nowhere and, oh, we can do certification for gold or silver or whatever. And
Yeah.
of course, yeah, we're going to be a net zero carbon by 2030. Yeah, right. Sure, dude. Sure.
Right. Yeah. Well, the LEED certification has been around for a long time, but the problem with that is that it only measures like a certain quantity or quality of things, like how far away the materials were sourced from, and how much electricity is used, and how much natural light comes in. But it doesn't measure water usage. It doesn't measure. There's a number of other things, and it's just a bullshit certificate.
Yeah, meaningless metrics, and the fact that like Bloomberg and Mark Carney, a former Bank of England guy, have basically set up these like global bodies that are supposed to be governing the use of resources, and they're using these meaningless metrics and things like, oh yeah, we'll plant a bunch of trees in South America, and you can trust us. We wouldn't lie to you planting these trees. And it's this focus on carbon dioxide in at the expense of things like pollution and like tangible things that are actually destroying our environment. It's like, oh yeah, no, we're just going to go with this intangible thing that, well, like kind of like a virus. Nobody really knows what it does, what it is. It's invisible, and et cetera, et cetera.
Right. I know. Well, and then they don't tell you, they do plant those trees, but what they don't tell you is they're not indigenous to the area that they plant in.
Yeah, the bullshit trees, basically.
And they're also monocrop. So you get like, they'll like basically plant a plot of pine trees that have no value to the environment in that area. They take away nutrients from the soil, and they dry up the rest of the forest, and they're not native, and they really don't do anything except, and then, because they're a monocrop, they could basically all die at once, or all burn at once or whatever, but meanwhile, people are living in tents outside these buildings that are empty. So that's kind of awesome. Right?
Yeah,
Win-win.
it's a bit ridiculous. I mean, the sheer number of like empty homes versus the sheer number of homeless people, obviously that's been a problem for quite a long time, and it's only getting worse because the Blackstone is going out and buying up entire neighborhoods at one go. And then you have like these the Atlantic defending Blackstone, saying, oh, well, I know that everybody really likes to hate on these big corporations, but it's not their fault. It's the government's fault for not upzoning. And it's like, well, two people can be wrong, actually. And it's ridiculous. The fact that people are actually out there defending Blackstone. I'm sorry, this corporation is like basically, well, Blackstone and BlackRock, the two pinnacles of like pure evil in terms of corporate crushing of the human spirit. I mean, like the article that I recently wrote about the hierarchy of dispossession. It's like even dying does not does not release you from their clutches, because they own all the funeral homes, they own all the life insurance companies, they own all the hospitals. So it's like you really can't get away from them. It's they've got their fangs firmly embedded in your neck, and it's at least in this country, there's not much that can be done unless someone were to go. I mean, BlackRock is, of course, run by this AI called Aladdin, which stands for something. I don't remember the exact acronym, but unless someone were to go and maybe have a little fun with the Aladdin AI and have it to suddenly, oh yeah, let's short sell all of the military industrial complex stocks. Let's short sell Pfizer and Moderna. And although the CEO of Moderna recently sold off a huge tranche of his stocks, so I don't know what's going on there, but perhaps there will be a reckoning in the future. I mean, one can dream.
Well, yeah. One could be. Well, I'm looking at this. I'm sharing this article that you wrote at the end of the that was released at the end of last month, and you go into these situations, this with Blackstone, and just what they're doing, and they're just like getting people on all fronts, like you said.
Yeah.
You were telling me before we got on the air that they're buying up. They've been buying up funeral homes since the 90s.
Yeah, it's like I said, you can't escape that. Even by death, you cannot get out of their clutches. And it's a question of this is in its own way a form of the social credit score, because if you if you're blacklisted from being a tenant because you had some problem with your landlord, then good luck finding another house. And if all of the houses are owned and rented out by Blackstone or one of its subsidiaries, then yeah, good luck trying to reinvent your profile as a responsible homeowner, because they are not going to let you do that. And they boast about it. They're like, I forget which company it was. This wasn't the Blackstone guy, but it was one of the big owners of these trailer parks. And he's saying something like, oh, owning a trailer park is like having people shackled to their Waffle House booths. And he got in trouble for saying that, and he tried to explain away like this idea of like people enslaved at a Waffle House, and he only dug the hole deeper. Basically, it's like you can't really get away from that one. It's like, okay, so you're calling everybody white trash, and like that you're basically milking them for every dollar you can get, and the whole Waffle House thing. I mean, dude, no.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, let's fill people in on this. This is an article that Helen wrote just recently, and it's entitled "Beggars Can't Be Choosers: The Ugly Reality of the U.S. Housing Market." And you start out by talking about how people are starting to buy up RVs and trailers or mobile homes, or what they call prefab, or
manufactured housing is the term that they're using now.
Yeah. My parents actually bought one of those, like 25 years ago. They moved out of it since then and went somewhere else. But, it worked for them for the time. But, the problem with those things is that, you own the unit, but you don't own the land underneath it.
Exactly. And they can evict you for basically no reason at all. A lot of states have basically no protections for mobile home tenants. And so, yeah, you're renting the space. And if a new private equity company comes in and buys up the thing, and there's really nothing you can do, because a lot of the manufactured homes, especially, like, you can't really move them. It's like this idea that they're mobile is not really correct. I mean, the photo that I used, as that was actually funny, the photo that I used to introduce that article, a lot of people like jumped on me about that. They're like, oh, but that's a picture of one of these temporary housing spaces for fracking people in North Dakota. That's not what a real trailer park. And it's like, okay, so you're defending that this idea that I was unfairly presenting trailer parks in this light, and it's actually no, that's a very well appointed trailer park compared to what some of these places are allowed to deteriorate into. So it's this idea that it's unfortunate. I mean, I briefly owned an RV myself, and unfortunately trying to park and deal with that thing in the city, as it was meant to be an escape pod. When the hammer finally comes down here and they're going door to door kicking in people's houses, I don't want to be here for that. So, but I had ended up having to trade it in for a smaller vehicle, because it's just, I mean, you can't store like an RV in the city, and although people do manage to do it, I've seen people living in these things. But
for a long time, they did it in San Francisco, and there were pockets of the city where you could do that. They're not, well, I imagine they can do it now, because the San Francisco is much different than it was before. But for a while there, they would line up along what was called the Panhandle of Golden Gate Park, and it was easy for them to do that, or they were out in like the more industrial parts of the city, easy to do that. All these brownfields that were abandoned, and so they could like live out there. But talk about dystopian living. I mean, it's still not really, and we're talking like, I'm talking about like the 80s and 90s, like the post-Reagan homelessness,
Yeah,
and
it's only gotten a
it's
lot
only
worse since
only
then.
become worse,
Yeah.
and go ahead.
No, the prices of these things are going through the roof because people realize that okay, well, I want to be mobile, but I don't want to be like tied down to this hookup in whatever trailer park that anyone could come along. They have like these entire classes now on how to buy, maintain, and basically wring every last morsel of like wealth out of anybody who's living in one of these parks. And so it's become a sort of a meat grinder type system in which they just like one of these Rube Goldberg devices that just like squeeze, wrench, destroy, and eventually your stuff is in a storage locker that also belongs to Blackstone. And you can't, if you upset them in any way, then good luck like trying to live in this country because they own everything.
Well, okay, so that's 2 points. One was that the Blackstone, has been buying up these storage facilities, and you talk about a woman whose life was completely ruined by her stuff was in storage. There was no ceiling or cap on top of the storage unit. And I've run into that before too, where they're open on the top.
That's
and
ridiculous.
all her belongings acquired black mold spores and black mold. And what did she move it out and then into somewhere else? And then it infected her. She said it infected her car that she was living in.
Yeah, she didn't realize that that there was mold, and she was digging through her stuff for like a couple of hours, and then she finally like saw what she was actually digging through, and she was completely horrified. But at that point, it's like, okay, so all of your belongings are basically impregnated with this toxic substance. And so she had already put a bunch of the stuff in her car, and it's like, it's very difficult to clean that stuff up.
Yeah,
you really can't. And so she's now got, she thinks, permanent brain damage from that. And it's, I mean, that black mold will completely destroy your life. I've heard stories from multiple people that I know. And I mean, there's ways that you can try to mitigate it, but it's, as soon as the objects that are moldy come into contact with clean objects, it's okay, then those are now tainted too. And now it's a big problem because this wasn't even a case of malice on the part of Blackstone. This was just neglect and complete inability to actually manage all of the stuff that they have. And so,
yeah, wow. Or the so-called benign neglect, right?
Yeah. And it's like, if you're actually paying for this stuff, then you should at least be able to trust that it's going to be in the same condition as it is when you take it out.
Right. And that's something that we noticed, at the beginning of the national emergency, or otherwise, AKA the pandemic, that your customer loyalty and your no longer mattered. Your the fact that you were a longtime customer of a given store or company just went out the window, and you were just like, it didn't matter anymore. Like we were talking about, like, for instance, like Trader Joe's, and these people would be like, I shopped at Trader Joe's for 30 years and they're treating me like this now. And it's like, well, that doesn't matter anymore.
What did you expect? I mean, they have no reason to be loyal to their customers. They know that they've got them by the balls. I mean, I remember when the thing first happened, and that they had people lining up outside of grocery stores, like with on these little like stickers, and it was just like, this is completely demeaning, embarrassing. And it's meant to be demeaning and embarrassing, and it's meant to make people feel like shit. And it's preparing us for the bread lines that will inevitably result once they jack up the interest rates, and people are like, wait, I can't pay off all of these debts that I've been sitting on for the last 2 years. And it's really bad.
Yeah, I know. And the weird thing about debt, and I'm going to get into this. Well, let me get into first about, you were talking about how we don't really need social credit scores because they're already doing these things to people through, like, say, debt, but also you were talking about in your article about these companies that are they keep track of renters and they put them on renter blacklists.
Yeah. Even if you win your case against your landlord, you're still going to be blacklisted, and nobody is going to rent to you because they're going to say, "Oh, this person's trouble," and you can't get off those lists. It's a tenant's responsibility to find out what lists they're on, try to remove themselves from the list, which usually involves paying off whoever is owning the list. And there are multiple of these lists, and half of them are like, I don't know, half of them are in secret, half of them are official, half of them are, and there's no guarantee that if you pay the guy to take your name off the list, that he's actually going to take your name off the list. So
right.
it's a complete Kafkaesque shit show. And
well, and it's like a third party. It's not even the landlord. It's like a third party company who has no they have no authority, but they also have no, like you said, there's no accountability, right? So whether you pay them or not, they may or may not take your name off the list.
Yeah, it's completely up to them.
And it might be also like, like the whole credit rating thing where, you have three companies that issue a score on your credit rating, and they share, and this information gets shared between them. So who knows, like if you're on one list, who knows how many other lists you're going to be on, because who knows how many companies are out there. I didn't even know that those companies existed until I read that in your article.
Yeah, I didn't know until I talked to somebody who had tried to get herself off all of these tenant blacklists. So it's like a lot of this stuff just goes on in secret, and it's very disturbing because already things are so biased against tenants. I mean, I know people talk about like New York is supposedly a tenant-friendly city. No, it's really not. They can. There are so many examples of like trying to get people out of rent-stabilized housing, and people not knowing they live in rent-stabilized housing, and so their landlord intimidates them out, cuts a hole in their ceiling or whatever. And there was one story that I was reading when I was researching that article about this landlord who he wanted to get his rent-stabilized tenants out, so he just builds this giant concrete like windowless building in the backyard, completely illegal, no permits, no nothing, just goes up in a month, this windowless concrete box, and it's like blocking off the windows of the people who live in the legal house. And like that case is still ongoing. I mean, they weren't able. It's just unbelievable. It's completely biased towards like obviously the builders and the developers, and it's been like that at least since Bloomberg. Bloomberg really busted it open for all of the developers and landlords and everybody, but I think it was already on its way to that beforehand, because of course Giuliani wanted to clean up the city. And how do you do that? Oh, you pay for development, and Times Square turns into the M&M store or whatever the fuck. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, like I grew up in New Jersey, and like we would go out to see Broadway shows. The class would go to see Broadway shows, and like we would see all the neon like peep show signs, and like this lady the leg goes up and down. It's live nude girls, and I remember thinking, what live nude girls? What would be the alternative? Dead nude girls? I mean, what? It was just funny because like everybody would rush to the side of the bus to like look at all of the like porno stuff, and it's not there anymore. I mean, it's just not there.
Yeah, they did that to North Beach in San Francisco too, where like Carol Doda, was the queen of North Beach, and the live nude shows, and it's now they're still there, but it's nothing like what it used to be. Yeah. But yeah, I take your point, because I was at Times Square post that era, and it was like, this is really clean and squeaky clean, like Disney or something.
Yeah, no. When I moved here after like years of not coming to New York at all, and it was a very different look, at least for Times Square, and very different. Even just I mean, I've lived here for like 17 years now, and just things have changed a lot. And just even in the last 2 years, like I was in my old neighborhood the other day, and it's very, very different now. All these like condo buildings have gone up, and the condo buildings are going up everywhere, even now. Yeah. Like even in this neighborhood down here, I'm always shocked when I drive up one of the main streets, and it's just like people trying to sell these apartments. Why? Who would be moving to New York at this point?
Right. Well, and they're just icky too.
Yeah, they're ugly as fuck. I mean, they really, aesthetics is way at the bottom. I mean, they actually, like the Department of Buildings actually encourages you to build like ugly shit. If you go onto their website and you look at like what they recommend, it's these hideous, like the buildings are sort of set back from the street, so you have a big concrete slab where presumably you park your car or whatever, but there's no like green space. There's no like, it's just the aesthetics are hideous.
Man. Well, what we've been seeing in San Francisco, because we still follow the news there, is that, you know, we were talking about people in tents, and what they've been doing is that they're reserving or they've been clearing out apartment buildings, and now in like really nice neighborhoods, and now they're allowing people who are addicted to substances, most likely, you know, opioids, first dibs at, you know, subsidized or free housing in these apartment buildings. And, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, it gets that, you know, ire up in people, like, how dare they take people who are, you know, addicted and give them free housing. It's like, no, you don't get it. What it is it's, you know, it's about money. The state or the city gets money from the government, from this Fed, for paying for services for the addicted. That's why, you know, the opioid crisis keeps going on, and why, you know, there's plenty going on. And Julie, what's the name of that? What is that called? The type of harm reduction. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. I mean, they've actually opened up, I think, one of these supervised injection sites in New York. I recently heard about that. So, I mean, they've been doing stuff like that in like Vancouver for years now, and I guess they just decided that New York needs more junkies. So
right. So they're doing that in San Francisco too, where they're, you know, and so the harm reduction programs bring money in from the federal government, which, you know, allows them to, you know, make money again off of addiction and pain and misery from people who are
there's no efforts to provide these people maybe with like a job or some sense of meaning in their life. No, it's just like, let's encourage the worst parts of their character, and just, I mean, I think that there are studies that have been done, that the rat park study, which of course refuted all of this mythology that we've all known for decades about, oh yeah, so you put a rat in a cage with a lever and it'll just keep pressing for the cocaine or the heroin until it dies. And well, no, actually, if you put a rat in a situation with a bunch of other rats and they could run around and have fun and do normal rat things, they stay away from the drugs. And it's the same thing with humans. So like, if you don't, I mean, this idea that why would we want these people that have to have jobs or anything like that? It's like, well, actually, being a productive member of society is actually, it makes people feel good. But we don't need no more productive members of society. We can't have that. We just need robots.
Right, exactly. And you know, the other thing too is they, you know, with the harm reduction, they get away from like the whole, you know, meeting with people. And I mean, there are centers where people can go and you know, get their things, but because of the COVID, it keeps people separated from seeing each other at these centers too, you know. And Julie said it's a money-making scam made legal under a constant emergency authorization that never ends. Right. So we the first, you know, we're under two emergency authorization going on. So we've got the opioid,
a lot more than two. I mean,
two official ones. We've had the opioid one and then the COVID one, and they keep I want to say re-upping. That's a lousy word, but you know, they renewing them every 90 days.
I didn't realize it was just 90 days. I thought it was like more of a year type thing, but no, I mean, like we're still under all of the emergencies that have been declared since like 9/11.
Sure.
I mean,
right. Yeah. Julie said yes, more than two.
Once an emergency is declared, it's never undeclared. It's just keep piling more emergencies on. And
exactly.
I mean, this is one of the reasons why they're letting up on some of the mandates, I think, is because if you just keep hammering away at people's amygdala, is the fear center of the brain, that it's going to stop working at some point. So they have to like put people on pause for at least a few months, I think, and then allow them to regenerate their ability to feel fear at the proper stimulus. And then it'll be that all over again. So, I mean, they're talking about climate lockdowns and things like that. And that's, unfortunately, people will fall for that. And
well, I think, yeah, and people are falling for it, in different areas. It's like now they're starting to use the domestic terrorist language, and calling people right-wing extremists and white
they're confiscating
supremacists.
people's bank accounts in Canada. If you send more than $25 to the trucker convoy, they're
Right.
stealing your money.
Right. And that whole thing was set up as a means of culling people and identifying them. And, they're now using the racist language and the right-wing extremist language and domestic terrorism.
Yeah.
And these people are going to be punished for things that they didn't even do by being labeled in a certain way, because the state labeled them that way. They're not that. They're just labeled that way. And
it's always the same tactics, which is just like, I mean, if you ever need any proof that this is a conspiracy, I know nobody likes to use that word, but when you have all of these people, or WEF, World Economic Forum, young global leaders, and they're all coming after the resistance with the same words, such as racist, extremist, anti-Semite, whatever the crying wolf of the moment happens to be, then it's like, I mean, it's hard to avoid the fact that these people are all being given their marching orders by the same people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the, you can tell by the language that's used, but people don't pay attention to that,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it's just pretty remarkable. Julie's saying something about emergencies, but funding toward health sector are under the opioid and epidemic and COVID. Right. So, yeah. So, but, there's all these other things going on too. And, at the same time, like I mentioned, identity politics and like, intersectionality as being used in a very cynical way to basically create a sense of conformity through identity, as opposed to just being a human. Right.
Yeah. Very much so. People are afraid of sticking out or being seen as something other than what the mainstream is. And the social media, of course, reinforces this to the nth degree. But
right. But, like through the intersectionality, it's getting people to go, well, see, I'm a gay Latina, whatever. And, instead of just being a person, but it then opens up to like, well, all these other people now have their identity, and now we can identify you too, and you're a white supremacist, and it's even though you're not that, right? And it's this labeling and cynical use of language,
atomizing society, and the point to the point that which, well, you're not allowed to find common ground with these people because they're different in this way, and it's obscene, because if we should all be working together, I mean, this idea that even like left and right have a lot more in common than either of them do with the ruling class. So it just seems so obvious, and the fact that people don't get it is very frustrating.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads me to this other story that you put out recently. Does the ruling class want to see fewer of us? Let me share that one.
Yes.
Hang on a second.
Yes. The answer to that one would be yes.
Yes.
Every day you go on Twitter and you see like another Bloomberg article about, it's great to be like single and alone your entire life, and this is a very good thing, and oh yeah, all Americans should be renters too. let's leave as little take as little of the ruling class's air as possible, because they need to breathe that shit.
Right, right, exactly. Well, they're forcing people into being renters, but at the same time putting them on blacklists so they can't rent.
Yeah.
So, like, where do they go? Well, we don't care. We're the ruling class.
Yeah. Basically, it's a question of like, if they could reduce us to like a form of fuel. I mean, the Yes Men was this satirical group that I think actually did something like this, calling it Vivolium. If you could reduce the human body to like a form of fuel, they would just be like throwing us in their gas tanks. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right. Or somehow using us to charge up their Teslas.
That too, yes.
Because that's the auto du jour for that class of people.
Oh, yeah, and you see them parked along the freeway, and they're like sitting in their cars and looking like zombies, and like in suspended animation, like something out of a Salmon Stalin head painting. Oh yeah, here we go. This right
Let me
here.
bring you up. Yeah, hang on a
This is
second.
what we're dealing with.
Right. Let me bring you up. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is, tell us who this is by. This is
Well,
this
Simon
painting.
Stalenhag is a Scandinavian artist who does all of these amazing dystopian nightmare scenes. And this right here, we have the guy who's got a virtual reality helmet on, and he's died because he never came out of virtual reality because reality, especially as we go further down the COVID hole, sucks. So people are going to want to stay in their virtual reality, and they're going to forget to eat and sleep and clean themselves, and you're going to end up with a lot of people curdled up like that. And I mean, I've had dreams about this stuff, and it's pretty horrifying. The idea of, and also the idea of the constant like booster shot of re-upping, like these people are going to end up like with needing to go to get their fix, or else their entire like physical form will just curdle with all these spike proteins and they can't get anywhere. So you'll have these people like curdled in mid like stride and with this like vector that they were supposed to go to, and because they got like a glitchy version of the vaccine and stuff, and seeing all of this, I don't know how much of it to believe, but seeing all of this stuff that's coming out about like these nano items that are floating around in some of the shots, and again, I don't know exactly how much
nanoparticles.
Yeah.
And
it's very disturbing.
And the graphene oxide.
Yeah, and that they can communicate with each other, and so eventually it's going to be like, you have a vector. You're set to go to this place, and you try to go to that place, but you're glitching out because maybe you got the wrong vaccine last time, and so you're like halfway there, and you just stop, and you're frozen in this like spike protein suspended animation. It's fucking horrifying,
right? It's like, oh, I'll have another shot of spike protein when you go to the bar.
Gotta liquefy your juice there, because otherwise.
Well, somebody was speculating that that the ability for humans to communicate without words, like you can feel the presence of somebody else when they're in the room with you, or whatever, that we have this ability to feel one another without touching, are being disrupted through these things as well, like the graphene oxide, and there's disrupting our electrical systems inside of our bodies, and so they're even cutting that off from each other,
this basically this as dehumanized as they can get us. I mean, and that goes with the 5G as well, which is basically cooking our cells. It's like, okay, so and the smart meters and everything like that. I mean,
certainly the smart meters, and like in Pennsylvania, it's like you have to have a smart meter. You can't get away from it. We have a friend who's fighting it, and it's in court. Who knows if it's going to do anything? She's been able to get pretty far in her case, but who knows when it's going to resolve, or if it's going to do anything. It's very
difficult to get around these things, because the Clinton administration was the one that basically threw open the door to whatever anybody wants to do as far as like poisoning the entire population of the country with electromagnetic radiation. There's not much that can be done at this point. It's something that had to have been done a while ago, and nobody was paying attention at that time, even though like the World Health Organization itself says that oh, by the way, EMF causes cancer. So oops, let's just forget we ever heard about that.
Oopsie. Oh well. Yeah. Right.
You never hurt anybody.
Oh no, you can, well, what was I going to say? Something about the EMF and the Wi-Fi. Like going to like thinking about like when they made the transition to digital television, it was a twofold for them, right? They got two for one bang. Not only did they get people to start buying new equipment, making money from that, but they also cleared out an entire bandwidth of signals that they can use for other things. That's true. So, like for instance, this whole Sidewalk product from Amazon that hooks up to all their other Amazon products, they're using just basically radio frequencies that are now unused. How convenient. And using radio frequencies to connect their network instead of more elaborate or expensive equipment to do that. And now they're basically using your Wi-Fi to hook up into a radio frequency to snitch on you and your neighbors. It's awesome.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah, there's an entire company that like has been devoted for the past several years. I always forget the name of the company, but there's a documentary that's been done on this, and they've basically been mapping out the entirety of the physical universe for VR purposes, so that you can just. I mean, it's 5G, of course, is necessary for the 24/7, 365 constant surveillance that they will need to be performing if they expect to get this social credit score in its proper enslavement level. So it's people talk about oh yeah, well it's gonna make our internet so fast. It's like, well, actually our internet is pretty fast right now. I don't see huge problems with that. But it's more of a, okay, well, let's cooperate with our enslavement.
Well, that's the whole thing with like the Ring and the whole sidewalk thing with Amazon. It's like, oh, these suite of products. It's like we did a little video on it, and we found a video from Amazon talking about Alexa and these products that you bring into your house, and it's like, is it on? And the little girl says, is it on? And the father says, it's always on.
Yeah. And they just did very perfectly open about this. I think that there was like some Super Bowl commercial that was like basically just, making light of the fact that Amazon is constantly spying on you. And they filed a patent a couple of years ago for this like drone delivery service, but also a drone delivery service that's also providing surveillance as a service to the people who it's getting delivered to. So it's like, not only does this drop a package in your backyard, but it also looks around your backyard to make sure there's no prowlers there, or to make sure that you are not doing anything that you shouldn't be doing. And they've got little ones that are supposed to be indoors and like fly around in your house when you're not there to make sure that there's no like burglars. And it's like, we don't own anything that's like expensive enough to be worth stealing anymore. So this whole idea that, protection from burglars, what are they gonna do? Take your cat food? Like, you have nothing worth
that
stealing.
Might be the case. That might be the case.
Yeah,
I mean, because I found the cat food we were buying for a while there now is like, it's basically made of unobtainium, because you can't get it anymore.
God. Yeah, so Petco stopped selling Friskies because Friskies bad, and then they put out their own like form of Friskies that I don't know about other cats, but Imelda will not eat that shit. So I don't know what's in it.
We were on the other end of the spectrum. We were trying to buy Royal Canin, and you just can't get it. It's just not there. Yeah, I mean, unless you're buying the stuff for that's by prescription, but I don't even know if that's available.
Strange. Yeah, no, Imelda is like she's like the McDonald's version of cat. Like, she'll just eat the cheap shit. If you buy expensive food for her, she doesn't want it. So
wow, yeah, she will. It's true. Well, ours isn't quite like that, but I was buying I bought like this organic. It's called Organics, and it's like she turned her nose up at it. She's like, I don't like that shit.
She'll eat people food, but she won't eat like the fancy cat food.
Well, ours, speaking of like these alley cats, right? So this one still goes out. Our cat Roxy goes out, and she was wandering around the neighbor's parking pad a couple of years ago, and some tenants were in the lower level unit, and I see her, and all of a sudden she like sits up on her haunches, and this piece of bologna flies out of the window. And she catches it in midair.
Wow.
And it was remarkable to see. But I was like, oh, wow. So the neighborhood is feeding my cat the junk food that I'm trying to avoid feeding her.
Yeah, no, people love to put food out for cats. I mean, they're just.
Wow. Yeah. So, cats.
And eventually people will love to put food out for humans. I mean,
well, that's I think what's going to happen next.
I've seen it. I've seen like bakeries and stuff. They'll put out their leftover stuff, and then people will come out of the shadows and grab it. And it's good to see food not going to waste, but it's just like the amount of food that is wasted in this country is completely obscene, for one thing. And like, people go dumpster diving all the time, but they try to people lock up their dumpsters because they don't want anyone getting the food. Okay, so what is the point of that exactly? Like, you're wasting resources that could be actually used to help humanity and stuff, but nobody wants to do that.
Nobody wants to do that. And and it's like, Walmart sends stuff to like a food kitchen, but like, or a closet, a pantry, but like,
Yeah, they probably taint it with rat poison and give it to the homeless.
well, yeah, well, also like they'll just send stuff that, sometimes it's good, sometimes it isn't. My parents were working in a food pantry for a while there, and they were telling me, like the stuff that they would send, people wouldn't want, or it was really uneven, basically.
Oh,
Very, it was like stuff that they just, well, we were watching this thing on Netflix. It's called Made, and it's like, it's like, here's your future, folks. And and she's working at a house, and this woman is like, it's Thanksgiving, and she's gathering up all the canned food to take it to a shelter or a pantry or whatever, and it's all like past the expiration date. Right. So she's taking all her own canned food that's past the so-called expiration date and then donating it to a place that will feed people that food. So I don't want this food. You can have it because you're poor.
Well, at least they're not throwing it away. I mean,
you're not throwing it away, but I guess the attitude that I'm trying to describe is that it's like, I'm not going to eat this, so you can, or something. It's kind of fucked up. I mean, we're poor people. Julie's like, poor people have to eat garbage according to the wealthy class. Okay, yeah. So
yes, well, that's the whole thing. You will eat the bugs. That's they want. They never stop pushing the bug thing. And like, I mean, I've written about that in the past too. It's just like they constantly hammering with the bugs, and nobody wants bugs, dude. Nobody wants that shit.
Nobody wants the bugs, yeah.
And no matter how much farmland Bill Gates buys up to try to prevent people from actually growing their own food, nobody's going to want the bugs.
Right, exactly. Here, I'm going to bring up your bug article here.
It's ridiculous. I mean, cockroach flour. I like joke about opening a restaurant in Williamsburg for like hipsters who do want to eat the bugs because it's a novelty, and so that it would be called the Roach Motel, and it would be like these cockroach pancakes and like mealworm. The Economist, the magazine, The Economist, what they used to do, I guess they probably don't do it anymore because COVID, but they would have a food truck out, and they would just be giving away like Impossible Burgers or giving away like waffles with mealworms on top, and like trying to get people accustomed to these things, just giving them away for free during lunch hour. I used to work as a courier, so I would be in Midtown a lot, like just delivering stuff. And I would these red trucks that would just be like giving away Impossible Burgers and giving away mealworm waffles, and like, I mean,
wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I had no idea. But I love your idea of the hipster Roach Motel.
No, they would totally have gone for it.
They totally would have. Yeah, especially pre-COVID.
Yeah. I don't know about now, but although, I mean, I don't know. I was in Williamsburg the other day, and there was plenty of people like going into these places, showing their papers dutifully with the certificates in the window. I mean, that the certificate in the window is really a creepy touch. I hadn't seen that until a few days ago, and that's like, okay, so we are compliant. You are safe here. No, you're not safe here. It's the whole stand up and put on your mask. Sit down and take off your mask. You replace your mask in between bites. It's this like circus of bullshit.
Yeah, it really is. But I have to say, I mean, your idea would go really well in that kind of environment.
Oh, totally. If I had the money, I would totally open up the restaurant right now, but I don't have the money.
No, nobody does.
Nobody has the money.
but it's like, wow, you could be like, it's sort of like, being like a dominatrix or something.
Yes, you will eat the bugs. Eat them now. You'll pay $20 for a cockroach pancake.
The hipster dominatrix.
Yeah.
Wow. Take off that trucker cap.
Yeah. Put on your mask in between bites. No, actually put on your mask and try to eat with the mask on. I mean, you
Chew with
saw
that mask on.
Yeah, you saw that invention that somebody came up with was like a pump, and then it would open the mouth mask thing, and it would like go open. And this was a couple years ago. This was like when the pandemic thing first started, but it's like ridiculous. It looked like almost like a Hannibal Lecter kind of situation. So it was just like with like metal metal insides. It's like what the.
Oh my God.
Creepy.
Oh.
I don't know
that
if they
is
actually
creepy.
sold any of those things, but they were all kinds of these devices. Like I'm working on setting up my Substack, and one of the things I want to put up on there is the chapter that I wrote for Cynthia McKinney's book When China Sneezes. So I'm like reading basically the predictions that I made in March 2020, all of which have since come true, by the way, and just like the devices that they came up with for people to wear, these like helmets that like supposedly let in air and this and that, and these massive vents in them. And then there was a big controversy over, do we want people to be able to vent their carbon dioxide? No, they got to inhale that shit. And so it's like, no mask with vents allowed. And so I don't know. I mean,
oh my God. Sorry. Wow. And I'd see people like I saw these inventions for people who were hiking, and they'd be like these plastic like tents that were around them, and
wow,
crazy shit. And we'd find these videos when we were doing our investigations for our videos. We'd find these crazy ass videos for these products that would be, like similar to like what you're describing, where it would be like a spacesuit, and their baby was in one, and it was just like,
oh God.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's so creepy. And just like this idea, like as if people needed any more help being isolated from one another. I mean,
right.
there was this guy who used he would like rollerblade around in my old neighborhood, and he had one of those big round, like inflatable, like virus suits on. And so, I mean, it looks more like a performance art piece on his part. I don't think that he was a pod person or anything, but it was just like interesting to see that like these things exist. People can buy them and wear them. And I mean, in the park in Williamsburg, those circles that they would put on the grass so that you would be sitting in your circle. And I made a point of like walking between the circles and seeing if anybody was gonna like give me trouble, but nobody did, and that was the freakiest part. There's no enforcement; people just do it.
Right. It's like those pictures you see of cats. Like people put circles on the sidewalk, and the cats go and sit in them. It's like, but cats are smarter than that. They just like feeling comfortable. But I see those in those circles in New York along like the riverside there.
It was in the waterfront, the Domino Park there, and like there was nobody enforcing anything. And it's the same thing on the subways. I'm usually the only person on the train that doesn't have a mask on, and it's like there's zero enforcement. You can be on a train full of cops. The cops don't care. I think they're embarrassed to actually be seen enforcing something like that, so they just look the other way. And
are they wearing masks?
Some of them are, some of them aren't. That's another interesting point, is that they don't necessarily wear them, and they were one of the groups that was marching against the mandates back when we had our pitiful attempts at protest. I mean, it's really embarrassing that this country has completely dropped the ball on protesting. I mean, you look over in France, you look over in Austria, and Austria is in a special case of its own, because they're basically going to be fining people thousands of dollars per year if they don't get their spike proteins. But I mean, there's enough going on in America that we should be doing the same thing, and the fact that we aren't is really pathetic. Problem is that every resistance group is infiltrated 6 ways till Sunday, and
absolutely,
especially in New York, it's a big problem here. There's always the same group of people who always end up running whatever like group, whatever resistance group they can come up with, and it's always the same dude. And I know the dude, and he's totally not on the level, let's say, but it's
guy incognito. I know that guy.
No, he's and he makes a point of like making everything look really undesirable and amateurish, and it's like, I'm not going to say his name on the air because I don't feel the need to do that, but it's unfortunate because he does end up showing up in all of these things. Like there was anti-5G protests a few years ago. He was there, he was front and center, and there was like a free Julian Assange thing. He was there, front and center. It's like, dude, no.
So he's basically there. He's like the schleprock, right? He's like there to make it like really crappy and like
Yeah, he's
turn
there
it.
to make a mess, to ensure that the sound
Right.
systems don't work, to ensure that like there's people change the location at the last minute so nobody goes to the right place.
Nice.
Yeah, it's always with the sound systems not working too, which is like ridiculous because it's
Nice.
not that hard to get a functional sound system. This is New York City. That's one thing we
Right.
know how to do.
Well, you know, like the professional schleprock, right? So he causes problems. That's easier and cheaper than to hire people to start fights.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
there's been a little bit of that, but it doesn't really go anywhere because people aren't quite stupid enough to fall for that, at least. But
Right. At least in New York, maybe. I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, not here. I mean,
Wow.
it's not some other places. Yes, I mean, they would leave out these just piles of bricks and everything, and like, I'm sorry, in New York, you do not see piles of bricks. If there's a pile of bricks, it immediately dissipates because people are like, "Whoa, bricks, cool, gimme!" And so the fact that there
They
were
use
piles
them.
of bricks during that summer during the riots and everything, like, it was a pretty obvious tactic there.
Right. And the same thing with like the fireworks that were going on at the, around
Oh
that same
yeah,
time.
don't even get me started about the
Yeah.
fireworks.
Yeah.
And
I
everybody
know.
on Twitter is like, move along, nothing to see here. No, there's always like fireworks going on from like May till August of every year, constantly, even when it's light outside, 2 o'clock in the
Right.
afternoon to 5 o'clock in the morning. And it's totally normal that these like random white dudes just pull up to black neighborhoods with like a trunk full of professional grade fireworks and hand them out to all the kids. Totally
Right.
normal. No.
Well, I would say something on our local, neighborhood Facebook page, and like these are professional grade fireworks, the kind that the people around here can't afford, and then you'd get the people get all upset, going, "JP, I can afford those. You know nothing." It's like, okay, so why aren't you firing them off?
Yeah,
It's like,
seriously.
it's
No, and
crazy.
I actually saw a guy who was like walking around Williamsburg, putting fireworks in trash cans and then just walking away, and then the firework would go off. And he didn't stick around to see it. It was just like, okay, well,
Yeah,
just try to create chaos in as many ways possible. It was like,
yeah,
wait, I wish that I had caught it on film, but I didn't get that. There's all kinds of weird stuff that's been going on out here. I mean, we've
yeah,
got like these
yeah.
low flying planes that come over the beach. They're huge. They look like a cross between a drone and a propeller plane, but they're
Uh-huh.
dark green and they're loud as hell and they just go buzz the beach. And yeah, again, was struggling to get my phone out I got a shot of them as they were going away, but it's like, what is
Wow.
the purpose of these things? And I don't
Just
know,
to
I've
keep
never seen
people
anything
off the
like that before.
beach. Yeah. I mean, when was that going on?
That was just a couple weeks ago. I saw that, and I mean, it's not like you need
Wow.
help keeping people off the beach in January, but
You're
it's
right, exactly.
yeah. I mean, people
But
like to walk on the beach anyway, but it's still like
sure, it's
bizarre.
intimidation. It's a number of things, I imagine. Yeah. Weird. Wow. Well, keep me up to date on that one. That's pretty weird.
Yeah, I mean, when you hear them like circling the neighborhood, and it's like I'm sitting there in my office trying to write, and it's like, brrr! No,
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So there's some disruption there. It's like you're working from home. A lot of people are now. It's like another.
Yeah,
So
I've always been working from home though. That's the perk of
yeah,
the
and all
job.
the fuckery that's going on. It's like, yeah, okay. Well, now we have to go back to the office, but only
Yeah,
two at a
Eric
time.
Adams is insisting that people go back to the office. Oh no, we'll do this slowly, only like 3 days a week. It's like, dude, you're too little, too late, man. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that
Yeah. I
guy is
know.
a joke. It's really
Yeah.
pathetic.
Wow. Well, we talked earlier. You said that you'd play your violin because we mentioned that
Sure.
you're a violin player. I won't make you play your theremin, but if you have your violin handy, that would be cool.
Yep, I'll get that out right now.
Okay.
So I'll try to do this here. Hold on.
So I know you've been, I don't know if you can hear me right now, but I know that Helen's been playing in bands in the past. Yes.
Try to get this stupid thing.
But I'm going to ask her if she can, if she's been playing with anybody or have you been busking at all or playing with any bands lately?
No, not really. I mean, it's too cold to busk on the boardwalk, which is what I used to do. But yeah, unfortunately, the inside places are all like vaccine mandated, and I don't feel comfortable performing in such a space because I'm not going to ask fans to come in and have to show their papers. I think that's just
right. Yeah. Yeah. No. Okay.
All right. Well, let's start this here.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. That, how long have you been playing?
I've been playing since I was 6 years old. A little bit out of practice because I haven't been performing at all recently, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know how that goes. It's like, you set it aside for a while. Sometimes you can pick it up pretty quickly, but I was just telling you earlier before we started recording, I pulled out my old guitar that I hadn't touched in years, and I hadn't touched in so long, I forgot all the things that it needed work on. So I had to actually go in and have it like refurbished and have
Oh
the
man.
frets leveled and um, and
Oh yeah,
all,
fortunately
everything.
mine is in it's a pretty hardy condition. It was made in 1923 actually in New York, but so it's in
Wow.
good shape. And I've got an electric one too, but it's just, I mean, it sucks that there are not places to play in, because normally, like, I mean, I was a little sloppy, but normally I would be, performing at least a couple times a month, and not really doing that anymore because these places, or they'll have some like arbitrary thing where there can be only be two musicians on stage at once, and this and that, and like they want you. Some of them like ask you to put a mask on when you're playing, which I'm sorry, no, that's a big
No.
no. And
Let me check that. No.
yeah, that's really like, and it's, I mean, at least I haven't heard of them asking singers to do that, but it's like if you're playing an instrument, no, sorry, still not going to do that. No, no, no,
Yeah.
no.
I've seen people playing in music, even outdoors, with masks on, and like, like wind instrument people who have like a hole in the mask so they can blow, like blow their trumpet through the
Yeah, no,
mask. And it's
I've
just
seen
like,
that. Like, I've seen an entire like a school band that was like that, with everybody in those little tents that you were talking about. Those little like personal, unbelievable. I saw that and I was like, this has got to be a joke. But no, and I mean that there's that one band that like had pods for people at the concert. I think it was like Flaming Lips or something. I think it was
yeah,
Flaming
yeah,
Lips. Yeah, they had like people in pods and shit, and like,
right.
dude,
They were in those bubbles, right? And
yeah,
the musicians were all in those bubbles too. And it was just, that was
unbelievable.
just gross.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talk about
That,
defeating the entire purpose of live music, which is hello, connecting with your audience, dude.
right. Exactly. Well, Julie made a comment here. That was very lovely. You must miss playing.
I do, I do. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I miss playing with my band. I miss playing like, I mean, I do like acoustic Russian gypsy music with a trio that we would play at this place in Manhattan, basically twice a month, and that was always a lot of fun. I mean, the place is still open. I don't know what they're. Last I heard, they were only allowing two people on stage at once. So it's like, okay, well, that's not me. And
Yeah. And that's not a band, is it?
yeah, not much of a band. And then I also play electric with a different band, and that was like we had a great big show planned for March 2020, and then oops, lockdown, bye bye, no show. I mean, we laid down some tracks in a recording studio recently, but it's not the same. I mean, I like
Mm-mm.
to actually be performing on stage in front of people. I
Right.
mean, the band leader of that particular group. Actually, you can find us at pinklips.bandcamp.com, I think. Um,
Yeah. That will be in the show notes, I think.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have it
it's
from last time we spoke.
oh cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean that she's tried to get us shows and stuff, but like it's you end up playing outdoors in the freezing weather, or it's like
Yeah.
or
And
it's like, oh, let's do a Zoom thing. No, I'm not going to do a Zoom
no.
thing. That is not music, dude.
No, no, that is not music. I mean, it's convenient for us to do this program, but not, I would never replace that with like, hey, Helen, let's go get a cup of coffee and talk. Right.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also if you're trying to play multiple people in different locations
Right.
and all playing together on a Zoom call. What the hell? No.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I've seen it, and I've seen like poetry sessions and,
Oh, it's
readings and stuff in
disappointing.
that format. And it's just dismal.
Yeah,
Talk about like, we were talking about, feeling other people's, vibrations and energy and electricity. I mean, that's what you go to live music for,
hmm,
is to get
exactly.
that
Connect with,
experience. And it's
yeah,
exactly, and,
can't do that.
and even the venues here in Pittsburgh are all vaccine passport,
It's
every
crazy.
single one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a big protest outside. I think it was Foo Fighters was the first one to come in and play Madison Square Garden with the post-vaccine era. I mean, very fitting, shitty band for a shitty
Right.
situation.
Oh
I've
yeah.
I've always wondered why that band gets. I mean, well, it's there's coasting off Nirvana proximity, but it's like
Right.
I've never liked that band, and now at least I have reasons to like them less.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, Julie reminded me there's a venue just like steps away from where we live, but it's a very small one. with a very small stage that they regularly have live music. No
That's
vaccine
cool.
passport, no masks, no anything. It's awesome. So yeah, that part is good.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I hear about like speakeasies and stuff around here, but I guess I just don't know the right people. I mean, we did get hired to do a private party. Like it was supposed to be in May, and they postponed it to like July, and then they figured, you know what, fuck it, we're just gonna have our private party. And so that was lots of fun. It was like this group of Russian people living in Staten Island, and they invited us over, and they had a belly
that's
dancer,
cool.
and they had all kinds of delicious food and drinks and everything. And
Wow.
I mean, it was a lot of fun, but
Yeah.
it's like you can only get so many of these gigs if you're not actually performing out there and people are not actually seeing you. I mean, they're not going to hire you if they don't see you play. So
right, exactly. I still have this fantasy of setting up a like a promotion company that basically creates a living room concert series across the country, and set up musicians that would do this sort of thing. But there's just the scale is not there to help support that. So just like what you were saying, it's like there's not enough parties, there's not enough places for people to see you to
yeah.
generate that repeat.
Yeah, there has to be a publicity element, and like, I mean, unless you're literally just standing out there playing. Actually, yesterday there was a guitarist standing out on Bright Beach Avenue just performing. I've seen him around the boardwalk a lot. He's always busking, but it's just like, I mean, you want to get a bunch of people together and actually go out and do something, but it's harder and harder to do so because people are just drifting away, or
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we could talk forever because I know from our email threads, you and I, we could go on forever. But I want to wrap this up and thank you for coming on and talking and talking about your work and playing some music for us. That was amazing. Thank you. We rarely get to see music on Pullquote, so I really appreciate that. And we rarely get to see music of any kind anymore.
Yeah, that's the sad part. I mean, I wish there were more places to play out because I'm out of practice, so it's like.
Yeah, and practicing for the sake of practicing, that's a hard thing to do.
I don't like doing that, man. I mean, that was like when I was still like living in New Jersey, and I had this teacher she had gone to Juilliard, and she was very, very, very talented, and she said basically like you can take two options with this. You can either go make this a career, but then you're going to have to practice like 8 hours a day, or you can just do this as a hobby. And I mean, if I had to practice 8 hours a day, I would hate playing, and I don't want it to be work. So it's like,
right.
I don't like the word a hobby. I find that kind of a repulsive word, but it's like, it's for me, it's a recreational thing. It's not, I don't want to be practicing 8 hours a day. It's
right. Exactly.
Great way to hate your instrument.
Oh yeah, for sure. But at the same time, it's like, it's hard to motivate yourself to practice, even though, you're just.
Yeah. If you have no shows coming up, then what's the point?
Yeah. But I have to say, I mean, I do find that when I do even just like fuck around on my guitar a little bit, it makes me feel better, even if it's just, a half hour of just noodling around, and relearning my chords.
Yeah, I was doing scales last night just to get my fingers limbered up again, because it's been a long time especially since I played this. I was jamming on the electric with some people a couple months ago, but yeah, haven't taken out the acoustic for a while. So
yeah, nice. Well, it's a very beautiful instrument, and that's cool that it was made there in New York, and so it's kind of still at home, so that's cool.
1923.
That's great. Yeah. My guitar is from 1963, so a little bit of time difference, but still some vintage. So, Julie asked you, what was it that you played?
Oh, it's called Chartist by V. Monty, the composer, Monti. It's basically based on like gypsy folk songs, all mashed up into a single thing.
Cool. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for appearing, and
Thanks for having me on.
Talk to you. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure. And have a great rest of your weekend. You
too.
All right, great. Thanks. Well, that was a great show. We there's lots to talk about with Helen. She and I always get together. when we have our email threads, and as I mentioned before, they tend to go on and on. So it's always a pleasure and always fun to talk to her, especially in this format. So I'm sorry Julie couldn't be here. She is in the background, as you probably know, but she's a little indisposed right now. So she wanted me to take the controls and at least do the show. So we are going to continue our series, Pullquote. I think we have Cindy Sheehan coming up, and a couple other people. Well, you can go to the list. It's on Facebook, and it should be on our website. But if you would like to be part of our email list, you will get updates to that. Go to info@book-of-hours.com. Send an email to us, and you can get on our list that way. You cannot get on our list through the website. However, you can contact us through the website, book-of-hours.com, and go to the contact section, and you can get in touch with us that way as well. You can always support us through Patreon. Go to patreon.com/bookofhours. You can go to Rockfin. Hello, Rockfin viewers. Rockfin.com/bookofhours. You can tip us there, or you can become a member and see all the content that isn't available to the public. So the premium content. So with that, I think we can say goodbye, and we'll see you next time on Pullquote. Thanks. Bye-bye. Pullquote is made possible by our patrons and supporters. You can help us continue to do the work that we do by becoming a patron at patreon.com/bookofhours. Join Rockfin or leave us a tip at rockfin.com/bookofhours. Or leave us a one-time donation at paypal.me/bookofhours. Thank you.